Hi, it's Matt here from Go Green Autos. So this is our own car. It's a 2017 Hyundai Ioniq Electric and it's got the 28 kilowatt hour battery. And this car has now done 95,000 miles. So in this video I'm just going to talk about the reliability of these. So if I just switch this on, and then there you can see the mileage, 95,017 miles. Let me just turn the aircon off there. Right, so this car has been utterly reliable in the just over 5 years old this car is now, so it's just gone out of warranty, and we haven't owned it for the full 5 years. We've owned it for the last 2 and a bit years, and I bought this at 70,000 miles. But I do have all the previous paperwork from the previous owner, and yeah, nothing has been done on this apart from services. However, we've just experienced the first fault, and actually I'm recording this today because I've got to replace the first part on this car. But the errors have gone. They're very camera shy, so I get the camera out and all the errors are gone. But anyway, I'll try to drop some footage up on the screen. But we've been getting the front collision warning system, that's been disabling, ABS errors, all the safety systems have been disabling, and the regen completely disabled, and that makes it quite difficult to drive, to be honest, because it feels like you're constantly on the brakes to slow it down. And I plugged in the scanner and it showed that all of those problems were being caused by a rear ABS sensor. So that is the first part that we've had to fit on this vehicle. So I'm doing that job today, but for some reason I just cannot make it produce the errors this morning. So during this car's life of over 5 years now and 95,000 miles, it's been a very cheap car to run, and it's had nothing other than services. So during a service they changed the cabin filter and occasionally changed the brake fluid, and that's been it. There's been no other parts fitted to it. Obviously it's got through a few tyres and wiper blades, and we have had a windscreen replaced while we've owned it because we did pick up a chip. But apart from that, it hasn't had any other parts on it. It's still on original brake pads and discs, and no extra money has been spent on this car whatsoever. Also got all the previous paperwork, service receipts from the previous owner as well, and there's no documented proof of anything being changed. There's paperwork here for absolutely everything, and nothing other than services have been done on this car. However, I see here at one point the previous owner complained of excessive noise coming from the coolant fan at mild temperatures. When this happens, the heater blowers in the car go cold. Unable to find the fault, technician thinks may be related to settings inputted in the vehicle. And then also complained rattle from the glove box area when the engine is warm, sounds like 2 full plastic bottles rubbing together, unable to fault noise. So that has been it. You know, the previous owner complained about some excessive noise, but there wasn't a fault there at all. And then more recently it did go in for a recall, where we've got a logic upgrade and 3-phase motor ground cable installation kit. I don't know exactly what they did on that, but that was all done free of charge, and took them a couple of hours. We just left the car there. So yeah, nothing else has been spent on this car whatsoever, and obviously been an incredibly cheap car to run. So I can just hear you all now screaming at your screen saying, but what about the battery pack? I haven't mentioned the battery. And there's this assumption that EV batteries don't last, and of course at near 100,000 miles you're all going to assume the battery pack is getting pretty poor, but that's far from the case. I've done plenty of videos on the channel about the batteries on Hyundai Ioniqs and on this car, so do search that out. But this battery is still at 100%. It hasn't lost anything at all over that 95,017 miles. So I'll just prove that again, but I've got my scanner plugged into the diagnostic port down there, and I've scanned all the ECUs in the car. So these ones on the stability control, the blind spot detection, and the cruise control and autonomous emergency braking have got errors, because that is the rear wheel sensor, which I'm going to change today. But we'll look at the battery management system, the BMS, and that's where it interrogates the battery. And then we'll look at the live data. So I've done videos on the battery pack on these cars, and I'll put a link to those in the description below. But if you go on the channel, go on the Go Green Autos YouTube channel and just search on Ioniq or Ioniq and battery, I've done a video showing exactly what the battery reports on these cars, so I'm not going to cover that today. So I will just scroll down to the bottom, and there we've got state of health, 100% state of health after 95,000 miles. So I've proved many times that this battery has had absolutely no degradation on the usable capacity of the pack. We still get exactly the same range out of this car as it did when it was new, and when we recharge we get the full 28 kilowatt hours of usable space in the pack. So possibly the buffer top and bottom of the pack has degraded a little bit and cannot measure that. So if you don't know, batteries on electric cars tend to have a buffer at the bottom of the pack and the top of the pack that you can't access. So it stops the battery being charged. So when you charge to 100%, the battery isn't actually at 100% charge, it's probably at something like 95%. And then when you flatten the battery and it's at 0 and your car stops, the battery isn't actually at 0, it's probably at about 5%. So it keeps that sort of 10% buffer there that you can't access as the driver, and that just helps to prolong the life of the battery. So quite possibly that has the buffer has degraded a little bit, because there would be some sort of battery degradation in a car at 5.5 years old or so, but it really is small. It's not the sort of level that the people think they're going to be. So I've seen lots of used EVs over the years and lots of battery packs, and there's this assumption that batteries degrade, and this sort of message that batteries have got to be changed every 4 years has been repeated so much that people obviously believe it. But the reality is most battery packs will degrade at less than 1% a year, and some vehicles much less, obviously, as you can see. That is unless it's a Nissan. Nissans don't have proper thermal management on their packs, and typically a Leaf or an EMV 200 degrades at about 3% a year. But all other cars, 1% or less. And I've seen lots of EVs, including ex-taxis with high mileage, and EVs which have done an awful lot of DC rapid charge to do that mileage. And even though the message is rapid charging degrades batteries because they get hot, the reality is that doesn't really bear up in practice, because those cars have no worse battery degradation than other vehicles. In fact, as a general rule, EVs with higher mileage have better battery packs than low mileage EVs, because they're getting used every day and not sat at 100%. And as we're looking here, just concentrating on the Hyundai Ioniq, still 100% state of health of the usable capacity at 95,000 miles. And in most cases, the battery pack is going to last the life of the car typically. So there we go, I think that covers it all, and I'm about to replace the first part on this car, that rear wheel sensor, ABS sensor. Unfortunately, on these cars it is built into the rear hub, and you can't change that sensor at the back there on its own, and I've got to put a new whole hub assembly in. But that's the first part that this car has had in 95,000 miles, and it's not that wheel bearing that's gone, it's just that little ABS sensor on the back. It's just a shame on these that it's not replaceable. So as always, if you found this video useful, please do click that thumbs up button on YouTube. That really does help other people find the channel. Do subscribe if you haven't, and if you want to know more on these cars, the Hyundai Ioniq Electric, there's plenty of other videos on the channel about these and obviously other used electric vehicles.